Okay, I couldn't help but make this video over the course of my wife and I's dating and engagement and now marriage. We've heard some pretty wacky advice. These are some things that maybe you are going to encounter as you get into a relationship, or maybe you have even heard and you just want to hear somebody else relate to you in this. Today, I'm going to share with you some wacky, weird advice that we have received and things that bother me about the advice that people give. I just, especially in Christianity, it's so weird sometimes. So I just want to begin with this. There are a number of times that we would go to people's houses or just hang out with different folks or podcasts that we were listening to. We would hear, okay, marriage is awesome, but the first year is just really, really tough. So buckle up, just get through it and it just gets better from there. So we're listening to these things and we're like, okay, we're kind of taking it with a grain of salt, but we're like, okay, everyone's telling us that the first year is going to be really bad. And then we talk to other people and they say, you know what, the first year, it's actually really wonderful. And you can finally just be a couple and just be married and establish your own rhythms, but get ready for year 3. That's when it gets really hard. That's when your real, your deep insecurities start coming out and you start getting triggered by one another. And that's when the honeymoon phase really ends. So you need to get ready for that. And so we're walking away from these conversations or these, podcasts or videos we're listening to. And we're like, okay, so it's not the first year, it's the third year. Okay. Keep that in check. And then we'd listen to somebody else and then they would be like, actually, no, you know what? It's wonderful all the way through except year 7. For some reason, year 7, it just hits every couple in a weird way. You're getting antsy. Maybe you're hitting like a life crisis of some kind and you're missing each other emotionally a lot. And it's like, it's just hectic and it's bad and you really just need to power through. And some couples don't make it, some couples don't make it. We're like, okay, wow, this is crazy. And then we begin to see kind of a pattern, a kind of a rhythm is that when people give relationship advice, and this is something just to keep in mind as you're taking this stuff in, and people, like, I'm going to talk about this in a second, but people are more than willing to give you advice when you're in a relationship, and they're giving you advice based on their own relationship, right? They're projecting, right? They're projecting. So what it was for them, if their year 1 was hard, they're going to be ready and willing to tell you, hey, get ready because it is going to be tough. And it's not necessarily, a bad thing on their part because this is their experience. This is what they have, what's happened to them in their relationship, and they want to warn you. They want to be a good friend. They want to be a good family member, and they want to say, hey, you know what? It's going to be tough, so buckle up. The problem is in doing this is that you actually you scare people. You scare people needlessly. That's the truth. Because I remember when my wife and I we were engaged and we were getting ready to be married, right? And we're so excited and there's so many things we're looking forward to, doing Bible study together in the morning, right when we wake up, and eating together all the time, and just getting to hang out all the time, and just so many things that there seem to be blockages in our relationship just because of proximity. We weren't living together, and just different things that we weren't able to connect on because of that spatial distance. Now we were together, we were one in marriage, and we were so excited about that. And yet, so many people wanted to basically rain on our parade. Why? Because they didn't want us to be caught off guard. If it is going to be hard in year 1 or year 2 or year 3 or whatever, and to me, I believe all that is different based on your particular relationship and what you're going through. For us, year 1 and marriage in general is just awesome. Yeah, have there been a lot of hard things? For sure, that's true. Okay. But it's been awesome and it's wonderful and it's like a million times better than not being married, right? And so the problem is that these folks don't see that stage of just being excited and giddy is a good thing, and you don't want to squelch that. You don't want to just dampen that. You don't want them to be miserable going into marriage being like, I guess it's gonna get bad. I'm scared. I'm ready. Okay, I guess we're gonna do this, but it's gonna be bad. Like, no, marriage is awesome. And why are you preemptively warning people of how awful it's gonna be, especially when it might not be that tough for them, especially in their first year or second year. Plenty of people go through many first years of their marriage, and it's just like, it's awesome. And sure, there are tough things, but life is tough. So many people say, oh, we don't talk about how hard marriage is. Honestly, I think we talk about it too much, and we correlate how hard life is with how hard marriage is. We connect those two things. We say, oh, marriage is so hard. Well, yeah, it was communication difficult sometimes. Yeah, do you have to work through some emotional, whatever? It's like, yeah, definitely. And that's a part of it. But in general, life is hard, right? Life is hard. Life is the thing that really begins to hit you down and you got to work through and da 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 da. But you had to do that whether you were married or not. Now, one of the other kinds of advice that we would get, and I would get specifically, was very gender specific advice. So they would say, hey, buddy, this is what your girlfriend needs, or this is what your fiance needs. And now it's like, this is what your wife needs. This is how you can love her the best. And whether it's podcasts or YouTube videos, and it's like, hey guys, we know what women need. And we know what your wife needs. We know what your fiance needs. So this is what you got to give to her. This is how you should treat her. This is what she is expecting of you or what she needs of you in this moment. And so I, as somebody that wants to be responsible, as somebody that wants to be present and caring and so I'm going to listen to this, right? And I'm going to take all this in and all of a sudden I'm hearing conflicting messages too. But then I'm also just spending so much attention on what these guys or these couples are being like, this is what she needs. I'm not realizing something important is that often the gendered advice that people give, especially in relationships, they don't apply to every relationship. Because although men and women, they are different, right? That doesn't mean that there are certain aspects where a woman could take on a particular attachment style in one relationship, maybe avoidant attachment. And if you guys haven't done any research in attachment styles, I would definitely recommend it. Maybe avoidant attachment. Well, the guy is anxious attached. And in another relationship, that could be reversed. And that plays a big portion in how you deal with conflict or how you deal with emotional issues or whatever. But for me, as somebody that tended to be more emotional, somebody that was more anxiously attached, a lot of and my wife was kind of the opposite in some ways. It was tough because I was getting a lot of this advice being like, okay, your wife needs this, you should show up at her front door with candies and chocolate and roses, and that'll make everything better. Meanwhile, my wife hates roses, and those kind of grand gestures don't mean as much to her as me being aware of what she really needs. And if some guy online is telling you like this is how women think, or even a woman saying that this is how all women think, I just think that's not helpful. There's this popular idea, maybe it comes from a book, I'm not super sure about where its origins are, but that women are like spaghetti and men are like waffles. Okay, I heard somebody say this the other day. And this is pretty common, like relationship advice. This is how you can understand your man, or this is how you can understand your wife, and how we can, even though we're different, we can understand each other. In a lot of ways, those roles are reversed for us, where I'm a lot more like spaghetti and my wife is a lot more like waffles in terms of how we deal with things. For me, everything is connected. Everything is, weaved into another thing. And, you say this to me today, and then you say another thing to me tomorrow, and it's like all connected and da 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 da. Meanwhile, especially when we were dating, my wife was much more like able to, box things off and like, okay, you said this to me here, I'm going to just put that off to the side, and this thing, okay, I'm not going to connect too much or read too much into this. And it's like, somebody were to say to me like, oh, your wife is thinking this, or your girlfriend is, and your fiance is thinking this, and how she's processing it, I could immediately be like, no, actually, you do not know her. Like, that is not the way she's thinking. And I think there are a lot of guys out there that's the case for them too. They're getting a lot of this Christianese advice about relationship, just believing that women are one particular way and men are one particular way, and it just doesn't connect. Like, there's plenty of relationship things where it's like, oh man, we're just not very emotionally present, and we're not really thinking about emotions or how we feel or things like that. Meanwhile, like, that's a lot of what I think about. So it just didn't connect. It wasn't relevant for us, and realizing that was a big freeing thing to get that advice and just kind of let it go right over our heads, because we're like, this doesn't connect with us. The other piece of dating advice, I guess, and this is just kind of a general thing that I just think is not super helpful, was people always saying, hey, you really need to date them for a long time. You need to date them for a long time, really understand, be with them in a lot of different seasons of life, and just before you marry them, right? And I understand why people say this, but I think a lot of it is due to the fact that people don't go very deep. with the person that they're dating initially. Like, they don't have those tough conversations. It takes them a long time to pull out the deep stuff of life and of the past and all sorts of stuff with the person. They're not very serious. And one of the things for us when we were dating and engaged is that we were committed to being serious and intentional about having those conversations, about having those experiences, about, pushing ourselves to get to know each other in a quick way, because we knew we wanted to be married quicker. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think the expectation that, oh, you should date for multiple years on end, just honestly is a bad expectation, and it leaves room for a lot of temptation. It leaves room to say, well, you know what, we have plenty of years ahead of us, so I'm not really going to, we don't need to sort through this issue, or we don't need to work through this issue, or we don't need to really address this disagreement that we have, theologically or whatever. And maybe, hey, maybe you should have those conversations. Maybe you should stop giving yourself the license to say, we're just going to put it off and put it off and put it off. Maybe today is the day, because you don't have to wait forever to get married. You don't have to. And I think some of the advice around that kind of thing is bogus. And I just completely disagree. Plenty outside people, especially when you get in a relationship and you start, getting closer to marriage, they're going to volunteer a lot of information, especially if you're a little bit of a more open person and they know you might be more receptive to it. They're going to volunteer a lot of advice. Take it with a grain of salt. Know that your situation is different. Know that you don't have to adhere to exactly how they did things, because everyone thinks that for the most part they did it the right way, and why their specific situation they really honed in, and why their relationship is so great, or they want to tell you why it's so bad and how to avoid that and that kind of thing. I just would be cautious about letting your emotions be too connected to their own experiences, because for us, we would come away from a lot of those times where people are like, oh, marriage is so hard, and these are all the pitfalls that you can run into, and this is why it's so hard to communicate, and this is when you have an argument, it's so hard. And we would just come away from those things as an engaged couple that really loves each other, that's really for each other, and we'd be like, when's the shoe gonna drop? When are we gonna start hating each other? When are we gonna start despising each other's existence? But in our hearts, we knew that wasn't going to happen. But still, it's like, don't take that. Don't let that take your mood down. Don't let that take your excitement down. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you got something from it. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like down below and subscribe, because I'm putting out new videos all the time. And let me know some relationship advice that you have gotten in the comments down below that maybe was a little bit wacky. Until next time, God bless.